Hi, in this UX showcase, we're going to take a look at the introduction to the static site editor. My name is Michael Lee, and I'm the senior product designer in this group. So why are we building a static site editor? To answer this, I'm going to take a step back and take a look at how content is usually published online. The goal of a content platform is usually to get the content from the content editor over to the reader. Traditionally, this is done with a content management system or a CMS. Some of these CMSs you may be familiar with, such as WordPress or Adobe Experience Manager. And if we dive inside a content management system, we can see that it's usually made up of 4 parts. There's a place where you can edit and publish your content. The content is then stored in some kind of relational database, usually, such as a MySQL database. Now, how CMSs work is that when you get a request for a new page, they serve the HTML pages dynamically. So what does that mean? That means that it takes the content that is in storage and does some processing to determine which views it should be rendering. It does its processing and then serves those HTML pages back to the reader. Essentially, it generates HTML pages on demand. But in the last couple of years, there's been a new way of approaching this problem. Instead of serving the pages dynamically, there's been a big push for serving static pages on a CDN. A CDN is a content distribution network, and that allows us to spread the content to where the reader is so that they can request files faster. But these pages don't just appear on the CDN, they actually get generated using a static page generator, a static site generator. Some familiar ones might be Hugo. Here at GitLab we use Middleman, but there's hundreds of them out there. And what these static site generators do is that they take markdown files and then convert them into HTML pages. And the beauty of this is that each of these parts can be thought of as being modular and independent of one another, and actually don't live in one cluster or container like a CMS. Instead, they use APIs to communicate between them. And this idea of using JavaScript frameworks, APIs, and markup constitute the Jamstack, and this is what is used to serve pre-built pages online. Our own handbook is a very good example of a static site. It uses Markdown to generate content, and it's used by everyone here at GitLab to understand the way we work, how we work, and what's going on in the company. So one of the goals of our team is to make the creation and editing of content in the GitLab handbook without writing a single line of code. But to get there, we're going to improve how this experience works right now. So let me walk you through this right now. Currently, for editing, we either use the Web IDE to make small changes or large changes. Some people create content locally so that they can preview stuff on their local device, on their local computer before pushing it up into storage, which we use Git here. This is where all the markdown files lives. And through our pipelines, we generate the HTML pages using a static site generator framework called Middleman. At the end of the pipeline, this is then served out as individual HTML pages that you can see in your browser. And one of the problems that we've seen so far over the years is that the problem kind of exists here for content editors. Who actually remembers how to insert tables in Markdown? I've tried many times and I always forget a pipe or a line or a dash. Even though it's been around for a while, it can still be cryptic to most people. that's why we're building a static site editor. Because when we go back to our values, what we're looking at is this idea of everyone can contribute. If our handbook is such an integral part of how we work and our culture, what we want to do is to make this experience a lot easier so that everyone can contribute easily. So enough of me just talking around the concepts. I'm actually going to show you where the group is at with the static site editor, and then that will segue into what we have in the future. So let's jump into a quick example that I have right here. Here is my Jam store, an homage to the Jamstack. And if I jump into View Products, I'm taken to a second page where I'm going to start editing some content. So on this page here, it's about strawberry jam. Cool. I'm going to go and start editing this page right now. Just some background on this. This site that I created was based off a template that you can create right now in GitLab when you start a new project, and that's a static site editor project on top of Middleman. So if you look in some of the templates, you'll find it right there, and then you'll be able to experience this static site editor. And the beauty of this is that what we're trying to do is take away the need to know the syntax for Markdown. For example, if I was going to add a new section here called new flavors and some new ones coming soon, and I wanted to create this as a heading, I can just click here, click heading 3, and there I get my new header. If I look down in the Markdown, I can see that there's 3 hashtags for new flavors. Cool. Next, maybe I want to create a table to insert this. And like I said before, tables are really hard for me. So let's take a look at creating a new table. And just through a click like that, I can say new flavors. Let's say icon and name. And let's say I want to add this strawberry. Why not strawberry? And hey, maybe I have another flavor coming up. I can just add a row. And I'm going to say this is one is orange. And orange. Cool. So in this new framework is this new editing experience is what the team is going after, trying to take familiar patterns that we see in other tools such as like Google Docs or Medium or Notion and incorporating it into our Markdown editing experience so that it's easier for people to contribute. So I can just click submit changes. And what's happening in the background right now is that it's creating a new branch. It's creating the MR for you, and everything's there. As I can click on view to merge request, and you can see that this is actually a real merge request. And it's going right now, and there's even a pipeline running for this to get hosted onto the site. So what the team has done so far is create a good foundation on which we can start building on and improving over the next few iterations. So let me jump back to the presentation. So what's next? I showed you where we're at with the editing experience. Areas that we're looking at improving is the previewing experience. So how do we preview the text so it looks more realistic? How we preview different types of content, and also how we handle non-text content such as diagrams, images, embeds, social media things. Like how do we handle that experience? Do we allow people to edit them easily inside our static site editor, or do we take them to a different tool to edit that? And also looking at in-place editing. So how might we use shortcuts and other keyboard actions to make editing more natural and seamless for people? And over to past editing is taking a look at how this works as a workflow holistically. So traditionally with CMS systems, you have buttons to like publish, save content, save them as drafts. So we're exploring ideas of how might we match that kind of mental model on publishing content on top of a Git ecosystem. We also know that people don't just make one change at a time. So looking at how we might handle multiple commits within an MR and while keeping the experience simple. And also, not all sections you can publish live by yourself. So there's approvers and reviewers that's already in place in our MR workflows, but we want to see how we might automate and produce some suggestions to make that experience easier for users. But all of this means nothing if we can't get our changes out live fast. So engineers on our team are looking at the build speed of the site, how the pages are compiled together, and also looking at how the architecture might work of fitting the static site editor into the handbook experience. And here is a future view of what the publishing experience could be. So here we have the content in the page style more aligned to what you might see in our handbook pages. So the styling of the headings and text matches that you would see from the page, live page themselves. You have your toolbar of actions here, but also leveraging like shortcuts and lookups to say, hey, this looks like an image. Maybe you want to insert this as an image. So keeping that experience closer to the content, the toolbar will be there, but we're going to see how we might leverage more in-context interactions. And also, how might we wrap up some of the Git workflow into a streamlined publishing flow. So these are some of the challenges that the team are going to look at over the next few iterations. So live preview, publishing workflows, how might we handle different types of content, and also how might we handle downstream errors such as merge conflicts and pipeline fails. I know our engineering manager in our group, Jean, has worked and given a lot of demos on how to debug your own pipeline fails, but we still have a bit of work there to see what parts of those that experience that we can make more friendly so that you can debug your own issues if you run into them. Hopefully not. But we're not alone in this idea of making the editing of Markdown files easier. The whole industry feels like it's a pain. And there's actually two kind of big projects going on with StackBit and Tina CMS, which offer in-place editing using pop-ups and sidebars as to fill in content. So truly what you see is what you get experience. Part of some of the research that we're going to be looking at is seeing how far we're going to take our product in that direction versus solving our own needs ourselves. But it's great to see that the product that we're working on will be part of this kind of young industry of static site editing. So our near-term goal is to get to a viable state in category maturity. So what this means is simplifying the editing experience with the rich text editor. We're going to be continually making changes on that, allowing people to make multiple edits across pages through a single MR. So that's kind of joining the Git and publishing workflows, how we might handle non-text content in the editor. So there's a huge list of the different types of content that's supported in GitLab right now, and we're handling each one as it goes, and eventually dogfooding it all by integrating it into the handbook so that more people can use it on the day-to-day, so that we can get more feedback and understand how we might improve this experience even better as we move on. So that's it for today's UX Showcase. I appreciate you listening to me. If you need anything more, check out our direction page, issues, or hit me up on Slack. Thank you very much.